Good morning, good afternoon or good evening. This is Roger Gilbert and I'm here in Abu Dhabi attending the VIV Middle East Africa event 2023. And it's a 3-day show. It covers all aspects of livestock production, including aquaculture. And we were fortunate enough to host the Aquafeed Extrusion and Nutrition Conference, which was a 1-day event prior to the first day of the show. At the moment we're on the second day of the show, but prior to the first day we had this 1-day conference. And I'm very pleased to say that I'm in the company of Dana Nelson, who is the
I'm an aquaculture or aquafeed specialist for Extru-tech.
For Extru-tech. I did know he's from Extru-tech, but I didn't quite know his position.
Yeah.
However, he's a specialist in the subject, and he spoke to us about what makes premium aquatic feeds in the conference. And while I remember, I would like Dana to tell us what makes premium aquafeeds.
Well, there was a long list of things that I talked about, but the main things that I highlighted is that extrusion technology has been around for a very long time. It's not a new idea, but all of the different companies that manufacture that process equipment are becoming better and better and better at one of the core challenges that's associated with extrusion, and that is controlling the density. Cooking extrusion equipment by nature tends to want to expand the feed. So producing floating feeds on extrusion equipment is relatively natural. Not easy, but it's the path of least resistance for processing aquatic feed. Producing very high quality, well gelatinized, thoroughly cooked marine feeds that are generally sinking products or other freshwater feeds, particularly shrimp feeds, which is a very big topic in this part of the world, is much more challenging. And single screw extrusion equipment has come a long ways in just the last few years at being able to make a highly cooked, highly gelatinized, which means very water stable diets that are sinking, reliably sinking products. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is that pelleting for dense pellets to sink for shrimps might not be the challenge extrusion processing has seen it to be in the past.
You're spot on. I mean, I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball for the future, but with almost every other aquatic species that's domesticated, almost all of those species have already converted to an extruded product, even though they were originally fed a steam pelleted product.
Yeah.
One of the primary exceptions to that is shrimp feeds. By far, a vast majority of the shrimp feeds that are produced around the world are steam pelleted. But particularly in Ecuador and Peru, parts of Mexico, or Mexico to some extent, they're converting to extruded feeds and seeing some benefit. And so that's an interesting thing to watch, to see if that's going to be embraced. But again, one of the reasons that extruded feeds weren't used for processing shrimp feeds in the beginning is because extruders don't like to process dense products.
Yeah. And in your mind, what is the key advantage of extrusion over pelleted feeds for shrimp? We also dealt with nutrition. What would be one of the key advantages of using an extruder in place of a pelletizer?
Well, my core area of expertise, what I'm qualified to talk about, is the physical characteristics of the feed. But there are nutritional advantages as well. But the primary advantage is that binders aren't necessary, and there seems to be quite a bit of research that's demonstrating that this idea of having a very dense, hard pellet that repels water so that it holds its form for a long period of time isn't necessarily the best way to feed shrimp. And so extruded feeds tend to hold their shape. They contain the raw materials quite well, but they have a more meat-like texture. They have a more natural texture, which lends themselves to, shrimp don't eat the pellet whole,
Yeah.
they'll actually tear it and masticate it before they eat it. And so extruded feeds are now appear to have higher acceptability, better palatability, better physical characteristics for shrimp's actual preference.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I also picked up at the conference that in single screw extrusion, there's a new process, a new production unit that is one shaft in the barrel and not the shaft divided into components. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Well, both technologies have been around for a very long time. Both single and twin screws have been options for a very long time. Twin screw extruders have always been promoted as more sophisticated, have better raw material flexibility. They can have a wider range of rations formulations. And so they've been promoted as a superior product when it comes to controlling things like density. And so twin screws have been promoted as a better technology. And what's happened with single screw extrusions is I think that used to be true, but I think now the single screw, the modifications, improvements, and innovations that have been included on single screw extruders has now closed the gap for the most part. And the other big advantage of single screw extruders is they're much easier to operate. They're lower in initial capital cost. They're lower in operational costs, both in energy consumption, so in terms of carbon footprint and sustainability themes. They tend to be a better option in a lot of ways. And so they're becoming, they're easier for the shrimp industry. That's a very cost conscientious. It is an agricultural product. It needs to be very cost competitive. Single screw extruders are much better postured to help feed producers and farmers keep their costs under control.
And finally, just on the extrusion section, how versatile are single screw extruders? I'm thinking, can single screws be used for, say, pet foods, for instance, at the same location as maybe they're producing aqua? Do you see that happening?
Oh, absolutely. In terms of, if you look at the most advanced or sophisticated segments in the pet food industry, most difficult manufacturing challenges, single screw extrusion is the staple. That's by far the most common technology that's used. And so they're prolific. They dominate that market. And in fact, some of the lessons that we've learned for aquafeeds have actually been pioneered from lessons learned in the pet food industry. Yeah.
And were there any key take-home messages from the event, from the conference for you?
Well, I think more than anything else, there continues to be quite a bit of concern around the world for high-quality proteins for feeding people. And at the same time, contrasting those against priorities for being environmentally responsible and having a very sustainable methodology to approach these tasks. And there's a lot of excitement and enthusiasm and very creative thinking going on in that area. And that's the area that I find the most interesting, is just balancing the practical priorities of doing the things we need to do while also being good husbands over the planet and trying to do a good job at what we do.
Yeah. And this is at the show, at the VIV Middle East Africa show, which is a livestock show. How have you found the event itself?
Oh, it's been great. The exhibitors, generally speaking, very professionally. The venue is beautiful. Quite frankly, the UAE, Abu Dhabi, and Dubai are really incredible places to visit, and that holds true also with the facilities and the venue here.
Sounds like we'll expect to see you next time.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay, well then thank you very much. It's been great talking to you. All the best with the rest of the show, and look forward to welcoming you back to the next Aquafeed Extrusion and Nutrition Conference hosted by Perrindale or by our magazines and VIV. But thank you.
And thank you as well, Roger. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.